Alright, just as an example of kind of how all this stuff fits together, we've been working with objects for 10 weeks now, object-oriented programming. These large classes, we're in Java, it's a more modern language than C. We've worked with ideas like modularization and code reuse and things like that throughout the entire CS 200 level sequence. Let's look at an example of how some of the stuff comes together. And I want to play with one class in particular called the URL class, which, as you might guess, is related to doing things on the web. So let me go ahead and make a new project, and I'll call it URL demo. And we'll make a GUI for this, so we'll say new, and we'll come down to other, and we'll do a new JFrame, and I'm just going to call this my browser, and we'll let it go ahead and create that stub of code for us right here. Let me go ahead and just do a really simple interaction. Let me just put a button on here that we're going to use to make things happen. So I'll go ahead and I'll do an absolute layout, and I'll take a, and Eclipse just crashed. That's fun. This does happen. Let's see how much it'll recover. So these are free tools, and they say you get what you pay for, but the truth is the tools that cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars, they crash too. Let's see what we've got here. We've got my browser.java. Let's see if we can open it up. Alright, so there's our code. Here's our design window again. And if this crashes again, what I'm going to do the third time is run Eclipse from the command line, but I'm not going to run it in the background. I'm going to keep it so that when we crash we can actually see what the error is. So let's take a look at our source code. It does not set the layout manager to null yet, so we were just at the beginning. So let's put an absolute layout in there. And then let's go down and take a J button and drop this over here. And I'm going to label that as go. Take it out of the corner just a little bit. Alright, and now let's write some code that will happen when the go button is pressed. Alright, so we're going to use the URL class. So I'm going to start off by saying URL page. And I'm going to import the URL class. I'm going to import it from java.net. And when you do that, it's creating an import statement up here. There's the ability to collapse chunks of code, so all of the import statements are collapsed. You notice it goes from line 1 to line 10. If I hit that plus sign, it expands them and I can see everything that's imported. But this is a way to, sort of declutter your code view. We've got URL page, and now let me construct a URL object. Page equals new URL, and let's do this. Let's do https clark.edu. Alright, so we'll construct an object that goes to Clark's web page, and this can definitely throw an exception, so we'll put it in the try-catch block, and if it fails we'll just return. Otherwise we've got a URL object, so let's read from the web page. So how do we do that? Well, when we construct a URL object, we get an object that has a number of fields that are useful to us, including the ability to open what's called a stream. So if we use the open stream method, it will give us an input stream. It says opens a connection to this URL and returns an input stream for reading from that connection. Alright, so when you open a connection to a web page, you're talking to a web server, probably port 8080 if it's HTTPS, and then that web server is sending you information back, and we can make that exchange happen by saying we want to open a stream. So this looks like the following. After we've got the URL object, we're going to make a new scanner. So we'll say SC equals new scanner, and we'll construct it from page dot open stream. So the scanner will let us read the main web page. So let's import scanner. And let's put this in a try-catch block. Alright, so we've got a scanner object now. So let's go ahead and read from the scanner. So while sc.hasNextLine, let's just print line sc.nextLine. And that's all we got to do. Now we've got a warning saying that the scanner SC is never closed, so at the end of all of this, let's see, we'll clean up sc.close. Now this goes against my edict from before when we were doing GUIs, saying like your button listeners and other things that are responding to events should be as short as possible. And it's not clear we want to start doing a long communication with a server inside this this action listener, because everything else in our Java program will be frozen while this is happening. But in this case, I don't expect this loop to run very long. It's just going to read in a page, and then and that'll be that. But normally we might have this create a new thread that would read in the page, so that this chunk of code could exit very quickly, and we could go back to processing other events. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. So there's our frame, and I'm going to hit the go button, and we get a whole bunch of information. So let me go ahead and terminate that, and let's take a look at what we got. We've got a bunch of HTML, and yeah, there's a long way to scroll up. Right, so this is Clark's web page, right? And a lot of it is, functions being set up in the top, and there's a lot of JavaScript and so on. But let's come down past all of this. And here we can find things like, find resources and updates from some of Clark College's programs and partners. Explore options for non-credit learning, including workforce training. Clark College is home of the Penguin Nation. Keep track of your favorite sports team, and so on and so forth. So this is, the raw version of what you get when you go to clark.edu. Now, there's a lot of processing that happens in a web browser to take this raw information and turn it into this this display. But the important part is, we can get the raw information, so there's that part we were seeing where it said Clark is home of the Penguin Nation, and then there's career services and so on and so forth. So this is the essence of how we get to a web page and pull information, and it's a secure connection, right? We're going to HTTPS. So let me shrink my console down. We're going to an HTTPS, so it's a secure connection, right? But the URL class is handling all of the intricacies of that connection for us. So that's kind of cool. We can get the information out. What are we going to do with it? So we can go back to our design window and let's add a new component here. Let's add an editor pane. So this is editor pane. Down here. So we'll pop this in here. Let's make it nice and big. So there's an editor pane. And I'm going to surround this with a scroll pane. So I'm going to right click in here and I'm going to say surround with, and I'll pick scroll pane. And what's going to happen is if this pane fills up with too much stuff, I'm going to get scroll bars so I can move through the information that's displayed. Alright, so now what we're going to do is in this go button, instead of making a loop that reads this code, we're going to display this page on the editor pane. So our editor pane is probably called editor pane. And so we're going to use a method of that class. So we're going to say editor pane dot set page, and we're just going to give it this page that we just read from the URL class. Alright, now I'm getting a warning here, or an error saying editor pane can't be resolved. Editor pane is declared down here. Right down here it says JEditor pane, editor pane. So what we're going to do is simply move that declaration of the editor pane up to the top of the class. And then down here, instead of redeclaring it, we're just going to set editor pane equal to new editor pane, new JEditor pane. And it's still not fine. Oh, so this has to go around a try-catch block. Pretty much everything we're doing these days has to go in a try-catch block. So if it can't access that page, we'll print a message and return. Alright, so I'm going to make one change here. Because Clark's web page does some things that require an actual web browser to be able to display correctly. So I'm going to go to a simpler web page. I'm going to go to apodnasa.gov, which is the astronomy picture of the day. If you've never looked at this page, I definitely recommend it. apod.nasa.gov, and each day they just have a different picture telling you about something cool related to space. So here's a picture of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, and featured in the book 2010. So let's open up that page and let's go ahead and use the set page command method in the editor page object and see what we get. So I'll go ahead and run this. And here's my window, and I'll hit the go button and wait a few seconds, and there's our web page, right? It says discover the cosmos, and I can scroll down and scroll across, right, and there's that picture from the beginning. It says Galileo's Europa. So we have a very rudimentary web page now, and I can go back to my design window and we can make our frame bigger. And then we have to make the scroll pane larger. There we go. Alright, so let's go ahead and run this and bring up that web page. And now you can see, you know, this is the same web page we were just looking at. So far, you know, if we try to click on these links, nothing is going to happen. By default, that's the way this is supposed to behave. But it's pretty easy to make this page clickable. So we need to go into the editor pane, and we have to look at this editable variable, and editable is set to true. If we turn that off so that the page is listed as not editable, and then we run it, well, now when we get over a link, we see our cursor change, and we can click on that. Now nothing is happening when we click on it, but the fact that the cursor is changing tells us that it knows about these links, and there's a good chance we can tie an event to what happens when we click. So let's go into our editor pane, and let's right click and add event handler, and there's a hyperlink and hyperlink update. And so here's a set of code, and we'll go ahead and, as usual, do some test code. So we'll put a message saying inside hyperlink handler, and we'll print out this object E that was passed to us, this hyperlink event. So let's run that. Let me make my console a little more visible, and we'll hit the go button. And so I'll hover over Discover the Cosmos, and it says I'm inside hyperlink handler. And a lot of information inside here. And this is just the information that we get, you know, by converting this into a string by trying to concatenate it, and so it's calling the toString method. So let's take a look at let me go ahead and stop this. Let's take a look at this object E, this hyperlink listener. So hyperlink listener is that's the method that's called when we hover over a link, and it passes us a hyperlink event. And in that hyperlink event, one of the methods we have is getURL, and so we can use that to see the URL of the link that we're hovering over. So instead of printing out E, let's print out URL equals E dot getURL. Run that. Get our page. And if I hover over Discover the Cosmos, it says URL is archivefix.html. If I hover over the picture of Europa, it says the URL is, you know, this europa.jpg. And here's NASA, and here's JPL Caltech, and here's the SETI Institute. And so as we hover over these links, we can read what the URL is, and then we can choose to respond to that. Now we could, you know, as soon as you hover, go ahead and jump to that page, but that would be a really touchy kind of browser. So what we typically would do is we would wait for the person to click on the link, and then when they click, we would read what the link is by using the getURL method, and then load that as the new page that we're looking at. And then we've got a pretty good first version of a web browser.